is not just bush, but there's cities, major cities. There have always been cities in Africa. There have always been universities in Africa. There have always been schools. It did not take anyone else to teach Africans how to eat with knives and forks.
I have money, plenty of money, and I can give you everything your little heart desires.
Blacks also have a rich heritage in making movies. During the 30s and 40s, a host of dramas, comedies, and musicals were made, often on a shoestring budget.
Most significantly, these African-American filmmakers showed African-Americans in roles other than maids and chauffeurs and presented a more balanced view of African-Americans.
The tapes, especially the lectures and documentaries, often sparked discussions among customers.
We just got back home. You know, I never thought of that.
And getting customers to think and talk about African-American issues is a goal here.
It brings out a cultural awareness, a connection with the past.
I use the videos not only for school, I use the videos for my own children's personal growth. I use the videos for some of the youth I work with that are in trouble. And collectively as a whole, this is a vital resource.
It's a resource that helps keep black movies, black history, and black accomplishments alive. Tony Clark, CNN, Dallas.
That's it for this edition of Newsnight Update. I'm John DeDakis at the CNN Center in Atlanta.
And I'm Susan Rook. Coming up on Worldwide Update, the people of Vukovar take matters into their own hands.
You can't go home again, the saying goes, or can you? The possibility of peace in El Salvador has those who escaped with their lives thinking about returning home.
If you'd like to give a special gift to a boy or girl 8 years old and up, get your pencil ready and write down this number because I've got just the answer for you. It's National Geographic World Magazine, published especially for kids by the National Geographic Society. It brings real-life adventure, page after page of fascinating articles and pictures in National Geographic color. Young readers will have fun exploring Earth, sea, and sky, and the environment and ways to protect it. And enjoy articles on sports, hobbies, science, and adventure. It entertains while it fulfills curiosity, stimulates the imagination, and encourages reading. And when you order the 12 colorful issues of World, your child also becomes a junior member of the National Geographic Society. Your child will receive this welcome kit that includes a junior membership certificate, an ID card, a colorful iron-on emblem, plus the chance to compete for a $5,000 scholarship. Your youngster can feel part of National Geographic's century-old tradition of promoting research, exploration, and geography education. Only $12.95 for junior membership and 12 issues of World magazine and much more. Compare this unique once-a-month, 12 times a year gift to a single gift from a toy store, and you can see what a bargain this is. No shopping, no wrapping, no shipping. You cannot get World magazine at a newsstand or a bookstore. You can only get it as a junior member of the Society. Just call with that special child's name and address today. Call 1-800-257-1257. Each issue has exciting surprises, challenging games and puzzles, inspiring stories about other kids, plus extra-large pull-out pages. What a wonderful opportunity to introduce children to World and everything it offers. And when you call with your gift order, we'll mail a special personalized gift card from you. Call 1-800-257-1257. That's 1-800-257-1257.
This is CNN.
This is CNN Worldwide Update, news without borders.
An abrupt change in scheduled Middle East peace talks, an 11th hour decision from Palestinians who say they will not attend.
Vukovar, a Yugoslav city destroyed by war. Its citizens bury the dead and dream of rebuilding.
And the high life of the Japanese underworld will provide a rare glimpse into Japan's mafia.
Welcome. This is CNN's Worldwide Update. I'm John DeDakis. Dave Michaels is off.
And I'm Susan Rook. Middle East peace talks were scheduled to resume later Tuesday in Moscow. But just who will be there for the negotiations? For late-breaking developments, we go to CNN's Steve Hurst in Moscow. Steve?
Good morning, Susan. From Moscow, the Palestinian delegation has told reporters today they would not attend the Middle East Peace Conference that was scheduled to start. Quoting from Faisal al-Husseini, chief of the delegation, he said, "We decided not to go because the Americans did not accept our formula." The Palestinian formula included having people from Jerusalem and from outside the Israeli-occupied territories in their negotiating team. The Palestinians had wanted to change those ground rules set before the peace talks began last October. Israel insists it will talk only to the Palestinians from the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, ruling out delegates from the Arab East Jerusalem and representatives of Palestinians in exile. Arab sources also said in another wrinkle that Jordan was locked in a dispute with the Russians over the number of seats it was allocated at the talks. The Russian host had apparently offered only 4 seats, the sources said. The Jordanians had wanted 8, like every other delegation. Susan?
Steve, has there been any reaction from U.S. Secretary of State James Baker, who is sort of shepherding these peace talks?
Well, Secretary of State Baker, who is, as you know, in Moscow, spoke about 9:30, about a half an hour ago, began his talk, and apparently just gave a prepared address. He made no direct mention of the Palestinian move. He did say, however, that there had been accusations that these peace talks weren't moving fast enough, but he said, before we run, we have to learn to walk, and we are walking, we are moving, he said. He also spoke about the transformation in Russia, transformation in the former Soviet Union that has allowed these talks to go forward, and said that the delegates were all here in Moscow trying to organize themselves on an international basis to deal with the problems in the Middle East. He also said the solution in the Middle East can only be achieved, and this is a quote, can only be achieved by concentrated action of the regional parties with the assistance from the international community. He also chided the parties in the Middle East for still being in a state of war with one another when much of the world had given up disputes through warfare. Susan?
Thank you, CNN Steve Hurst, with the latest from Moscow on the Middle East peace talks there. John?
Aides to Russian President Boris Yeltsin said that he will not be attending the Mideast Peace Conference in Moscow. Officials had been talking last week about the possibility of making a role for him. Mr. Yeltsin's aides say that he is preparing for his first trip to the West since becoming president. This comes as the U.S. and Russia are close to announcing agreements to destroy some of the nuclear weapons of the former Soviet Union. CNN's World Affairs correspondent Ralph Begleiter has that story.
Baker arrived in Moscow thinking the former Soviets are now moving quickly to reduce their nuclear threat to the West. It's the Secretary of State's first touchdown in Moscow since the Soviet Union's demise 1 month ago. Baker is pleased with unexpected rapid progress the Russians have made in moving nuclear warheads from outlying republics into Russia.
You have to collect them, you have to store them, you have to disable them, and then you can go about the business of destroying them. And we're well underway with that overall process.
Of special concern are the warheads on so-called battlefield nuclear weapons, the short-range weapons such as nuclear artillery and landmines, not the transcontinental or strategic weapons. In the uncertain political climate of the former Soviet Union, it's the short-range nuclear weapons the U.S. fears might most likely be susceptible to theft or misuse. U.S. intelligence has confirmed battlefield nuclear warheads are being moved quickly from Kazakhstan, Belarus, and Ukraine into nuclear storage sites in Russia. Strategic or long-range nuclear weapons are apparently being moved so far only from Belarus and Ukraine. In Russia, U.S. officials say nuclear weapons are being dismantled by the Russians, although they are not yet being irrevocably destroyed. Destruction of the former Soviet Union's nuclear weapons is what Baker and the Russians are discussing this week, just before President Boris Yeltsin flies to London, New York, and Washington for a series of summit meetings in the West. Yeltsin has been notable by his absence from public view in Moscow, but aides insist Yeltsin is working at a country hideaway. Is he sick?
Yeah.
The Russians expect disarmament announcements in President Bush's State of the Union address this week. They hint Mr. Bush and Yeltsin will announce a fresh round of joint military cuts by the U.S. and former Soviet Union after the Camp David summit at week's end. Ralph Begleiter, CNN, with the U.S. Secretary of State in Moscow.
And still ahead, rebuilding a city devastated by civil war. If you look carefully, you'll spot signs of life once again in Vukovar.
And in the U.S., the presidential hopeful presses on amid allegations of infidelity.
The voices of American voters.
I think people are disappointed.
We keep having to compromise.
Hear how people really feel about racism, unemployment, and other major issues. The People's Agenda, a Democracy in America special, February 2nd on CNN.
Hollywood Pictures presents Sean Connery.
We need help.
Don't you presume to tell me how to follow up.
A man determined to make a difference.
I found a cure for the plague of the 20th century, and now I've lost it.
This is the cure for cancer.
I know. Now you move your road through here, and we've lost it.
From John McTiernan, the director of Die Hard and The Hunt for Red October. Medicine Man, rated PG-13. Starts Friday, February 7th at a theater near you.
An Egg McMuffin and a medium coffee, please.
Is that for here to go?
To go. I'm meeting my daughter for breakfast.
The elegance and class of Loy and Powell. The on- and off-screen sparks of Bogart and Bacall. The good, clean fun of Garland and Rooney. Lovers. Call 1-800-395-0683 and order the perfect book for Valentine's Day.
The United Nations is protesting Iraqi harassment of the UN weapons inspection team. A spokesman for the world body says Iraqi demonstrators shouted at some inspectors and pinned them against a wall as they arrived in Baghdad Monday. Other inspectors were reportedly trapped inside a bus outside the hotel. UN officials say Iraqi police stood by and watched, but did not intervene.
A special envoy with the United Nations is meeting again with a rebel Serbian leader who was threatened to keep UN peacekeepers out of Croatia. The rebel Serbs consider their area of Croatia a separate republic and don't want UN protection. European leaders fear a 3-week-old ceasefire could shatter if the peacekeepers are kept out.
At least 6,000 people on both sides have already died in the fighting. A nation has crumbled, families have been ripped apart, cities have gone up in smoke. But there are signs of hope. Jackie Szymanski has our story.
20 sons of Vukovar have come home. The soldiers died in battle miles away from their city. The front line has moved away, allowing the bodies to be returned to grieving families and friends. An honor guard stands at attention, paying tribute to fallen comrades. But just outside the gathering, watchful armed soldiers patrol ceaselessly, wary of attack. Serbian forces took over the Croatian city 2 months ago, but Vukovar is still on edge. Army checkpoints monitor who goes in and who goes out. Street after street remains empty, devastated by war. But there are small signs of recovery. There may be no water and no electricity, but there are plenty of plans. Volunteer workers clear debris to make way for a new store. The work is backbreaking and dirty, but nobody is complaining.
First, I covered the roof of my house to make it livable. Now we organize these drives to clean up the city.
About 6,000 people live in Vukovar, a fraction of the pre-war population. That still strains remaining services. Water has to be trucked in. There is a store in town, but most have to rely on aid.
All citizens are eligible for food aid, and they have to be. They don't have jobs. They aren't earning money, so help is a necessity.
Reconstruction will be a major source of employment. Work is already underway at the city's hospital. Damage is heavy, but hasn't prevented routine operations, like the birth of one of the first ceasefire babies.
I think the time will come when all will be rebuilt, and life will go on.
The future of Vukovar is unclear. The Serb-dominated town lies within Croatian territory. Forces larger than those on the ground will decide its future.
Rebuilding this battered city will take months, if not years. Memories of the war will probably last much longer. Jackie Szymanski for CNN, Vukovar. The controversy over Governor Bill Clinton's alleged womanizing intensified Monday when a woman said she was Clinton's lover for 12 years. Jennifer Flowers repeated her allegations at a news conference saying she and Clinton were romantically involved. She also called Clinton a liar for denying they had had an affair. In a nationally televised interview on Sunday, Clinton said they were friendly acquaintances.
The man on 60 Minutes was not the man I fell in love with. I have dealt with my hurt for 2 years now, so this is nothing new to me. I would have liked to think that after a 12-year relationship, he would have had the guts to say, yes, I had an affair with this woman, but it's over, and that's the truth.
In his response, Clinton said Flowers did not tell the truth. Clinton said she hired a lawyer a year and a half ago to say that anybody who said that is a liar and would be sued. He said she changed her position for money. Clinton is scheduled to be the guest Tuesday on CNN's Inside Politics 92. That's at 4:30 p.m. Eastern.
The rape case against boxer Mike Tyson could be underway late Wednesday. 5 jurors, 4 men and a woman, were quickly chosen Monday, the first day of jury selection. 12 are needed to decide the fate of the former heavyweight champion. His accuser was a contestant in last year's Miss Black America pageant. A key issue is emerging, whether or not she consented to have sex with Tyson.
The former Soviet Union is getting perhaps an unwelcome taste of Western life. Drug trafficking and abuse are on the rise, putting a strain on resources in an already crippled economy. Howell Jones reports from Moscow.
At the Danilovsky market in Moscow, there's a new cash crop for sale alongside the overpriced fruit and vegetables, drugs. This market trader from Chechen-Ingushetia is known to the Moscow police as a drugs trafficker. His stall is heaped with herbs and spices, but he supplies hashish under the counter at a handsome profit. Russian drugs officers also face growing numbers of street pushers. In the town of Nizhny Novgorod, a dealer under surveillance by drugs officers sells some marijuana. As the dealer moves away, the officers move in. The man in charge of combating the Russian drugs trade says traffickers will inevitably try to sell cheap drugs in the West.
Our drugs produced here cost much less than abroad. 1 kilo of hashish here cost maximum $100 or even less. Abroad, in Germany or England, the same kilo of hashish will cost $3,000 or $5,000.
In the Central Asian Republic of Turkmenistan, armed police find row upon row of poppy plants, the raw material of the opium trade. The poppy heads have been sliced open, the opium extracted. The dealers try to make their getaway by motorcycle, only to be tracked down by helicopter. This crop of poppies burned before it could be harvested, but the authorities warn that similar consignments could flood westwards as trade links open up.
At present, you're opening all borders. This gives the drug dealers a chance to take drugs freely from one country to another.
Drugs rehabilitation wards at the Sklifosovsky Hospital in Moscow are so crowded that patients have to sleep in the corridors. Volodya has been hooked on opium and methadone for 2 years, bought in the city's markets. It's so easy. You just go there, pay money, take the drugs, and go away. Russia's hospitals are struggling to treat increasing numbers of addicts with decreasing levels of funding. The result, finding cheap drugs is much easier than finding good treatment. Howell Jones, ITN, Moscow.
Still ahead on CNN Worldwide Update, a poignant look inside Japan's underworld, including the country's illustrated men.
Now you can roll away unsightly debris from carpets, roll away stubborn lint or dandruff in seconds. Clinging pet hair on skirts and sweaters, roll it up and rinse it away. Introducing Magic Roller. It picks it up, you rinse it off, and use it again and again. Don't struggle cleaning old-fashioned clothing brushes or replacing messy paper refills. Magic Roller's permanent silicone surface lasts and lasts. Its space-age roller penetrates so thoroughly, watch it pull the print right off a newspaper, yet it's gentle enough to use on this delicate cashmere sweater. Call or send now, and you also receive this fold-away travel-size Magic Roller. Its magnet-like action attracts dust, lint, and hair just like the big household model. You get them both for only $14.98. Magic Roller is ideal for car seats, mats, and slip covers, fresh and upholstered furniture, lampshades, needlepoint. Pick up dirt, dust, and debris your vacuum missed, and you might not even see. Magic Roller is the best clothing brush on the market. It has hundreds of uses, and best of all, it rinses right off. Call or send to Magic Roller at this address now. You get both home and travel Magic Rollers for only $14.98. Order more than one set and take $2 off every additional set you order. Be sure to order today.
They are Japan's illustrated men. When they do wrong, they lop off a finger. They lurk in the shadow of the economic miracle, coolly projecting their influence worldwide. They're organized gangsters known as the Yakuza. CNN's Taylor Henry reports from Tokyo.
This is the Japan the world has come to know, if not love. A country of law-abiding citizens, largely distinct from other nations in its post-World War II aversion to violence. A people obsessed with putting in a long day at the shop or office. But the Japanese know their society functions on another level as well. This is the other. These scenes provide a rare view into Japan's underworld, a world of tightly organized crime families known collectively here as the Yakuza. It is a world steeped in centuries-old traditions and rituals, some based on the ideals of Japanese samurai warriors, courage, honor, willingness to lay down one's life for one's fellows, and determination to be intimidated by no outsider. One ritual, self-mutilation, cutting off fingers at the joint. The Yakuza consider this the sincerest act of atonement, short of death itself, for misbehavior or disobedience to the Oyabun, or Godfather. The severed portion is wrapped in a handkerchief and presented as a token of remorse to the Oyabun, or whoever suffered the wrong.
Well, some people make mistake, right? So they cut.
Such mistakes include, in the case of this gangster, reckless gambling. Skillful gambling, such as the card game demonstrated by these gangsters, is a big part of the Yakuza tradition. The term Yakuza itself is an acronym of 3 card numbers. Ya, 8, Ku, 9, Za, 3. That's a losing combination in a game called Hanafuda, or flower cards. Mainstream Japan, the Yakuza know, regards them as losers in life. The 88,000 known gangsters now active in Japan come largely, as the Yakuza traditionally have, from impoverished Japanese families and underclasses that include the Korean minority here. Yakuza rituals dramatized in Hollywood movies like Black Rain aren't far off the mark. Full-body tattoos are a kind of underworld uniform for these gangsters. The hands, neck, and face are left untouched, so they can blend in public wearing a suit without calling attention to this not-so-subtle Yakuza trademark.
I thought it was cool, so I got it done.
Japanese police are officially at odds with the Yakuza, but the gangs are so prevalent the police are forced to practice some measure of tolerance. The Yakuza have long-standing ties to Japan's fanatical right-wing political groups, and many are avowed ultra-nationalists.
We are anti-communists. We die for the emperor, too.
After World War II, the U.S. occupation used the Yakuza to ensure the survival of conservative government in Japan. And in 1960, the governing Liberal Democratic Party called on the gangs to help police quell leftist protests over a new U.S.-Japan security treaty. What draws these outcasts to the Yakuza on the surface is a world of flashy cars, expensive suits, and high living. But just as real to the outcasts is the feeling of belonging. One group the Yakuza don't accept into their ranks is women. In a culture where women's rights still have a long way to go, women have their place in Yakuza life. Many work as hostesses and waitresses in the bars operated by these gangsters throughout Japan. Entertainers for the Yakuza and their clients. This freewheeling lifestyle is supported mainly, Japanese police say, by a variety of organized criminal activity. Yakuza gangsters recruit women from Japan, Thailand, and countries throughout Asia to work as prostitutes in Japan's bustling sex industry. They sell a form of speed in Japan called shabu and export this and other drugs to the West, where it's known in Hawaii as ice. Speed is by far the drug of choice in workaholic Japan. Other drugs are relatively uncommon here. But Japanese police say the Yakuza are bringing in more and more cocaine. The Yakuza are still involved, too, police say, in illegal bookmaking and a host of other crimes such as gun running and extortion. The U.S. Attorney General's office says Yakuza gangsters are increasingly expanding their criminal activities overseas to California, New York, and other states, something Japanese police and some of Japan's top gangs deny. But Yakuza leaders do acknowledge some gangsters are investing abroad.
Cheap real estate abroad, especially the price level of real estate abroad, is different from that of Japan. I think there are some who have invested a little in these real estate properties abroad.
As the Yakuza become more international, some gang leaders are encouraging young recruits to adopt a new style, to move more into legal business and associated white-collar activity. The old rituals live on, though. Police believe nearly half the gangsters in Japan today have missing fingers. 3/4 have tattoos, known here as irezumi, tattoos etched on in a time-consuming, painful procedure that tests the patience, and the Yakuza believe prove a member's willingness to endure suffering for the group. But irezumi has lasting significance as well. It is seen as one way of committing oneself to the Yakuza, a commitment as permanent as the images on the skin. Just as companies in Japan provide lifelong employment to workers in the everyday world, the Yakuza offer outcasts lifelong belonging in the underworld. Taylor Henry, CNN, Tokyo.
Ahead on Worldwide Update, to stay or go back home, peace makes the choice a difficult one to make for one family who escaped from El Salvador.
A day across Europe, Asia, and America. 70,000 of the best people on the ground are working to bring you the best service in the sky.
Delta, we love to fly and it shows.
Remember when cats sang for Meow Mix?
Meow, 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 meow.
Well, now there's an all-new Meow Mix. With flavors cats prefer 3-to-1. If cats sang for the old Meow Mix, what'll they do now? All new Meow Mix. Tastes so good, cats ask for it by name. Meow. To say the least.
A record number of Haitians fled their troubled island nation Monday and sought refuge in the U.S. Coast Guard officials say their ships picked up 1,100 Haitians on Monday, and more overcrowded sailboats were spotted. The Coast Guard says its rescue abilities are threatened by the massive number of Haitians. Some 4,000 Haitians were picked up this month alone The exodus began after the September coup.
The signing of the Salvadoran peace treaty has many who escaped the fighting thinking about returning home. The largest population of Salvadorans outside of that country live in Los Angeles. CNN's Greg Lamont reports for many refugees, the decision to return home is clear-cut.
Marta Candido, her husband, and 9 children have been living in Los Angeles ever since fleeing war-ravaged El Salvador about 5 years ago.
Lo primero que me impulsó a viajar para acá.
The first thing that made me decide to leave my country was the horrible situation we were living in. In addition to the death threats our family received, just the fact of having to see dead bodies and many people we know killed.
For Marta, life was made unbearable after being kidnapped and tortured by the Salvadoran army.
Esos 6 días que me tuvieron.
They wouldn't let me sit down or go to sleep. I couldn't move from the spot in which they held me. They gave me no food for 6 days. They beat me repeatedly and threatened to kill all my children. They claimed I was a guerrilla.
1 million Salvadorans escaped from the country and now live in the U.S., more than half in the Los Angeles area. But now that a peace treaty has been signed, some families are planning to return home. Families like Francisco and Edith Argueta, who also fled because of persecution and torture.
Porque nuestra idea nunca fue quedarnos.
We never intended to stay and never came to stay. We only came because we were fleeing for our lives from death.
Returning home will be painful. Memories of war and death will easily be triggered. Psychologist Anna Deutsch works with refugee families.
Emotionally can live again the pain and the suffering and the impotence and the helplessness that is felt during torture. All of a sudden comes back those kind of feelings and the anger, the rage.
Not to mention starting life all over again.
The hardest part for us is just going to be finding a place to live. When we came here, we sold everything. We're going to have to start again from zero.
But returning is something they must do. It is what they ingrained in their children.
My people need peace. Everybody needs peace, and everybody will make a pressure to get this peace.
Everyone wants peace, but not everyone will go home. Marta cries. She wants to return, but says her fear won't let her. If the peace lasts, she says, maybe, just maybe, one day her children will finally be able to go home. Greg Lamont, CNN, Los Angeles.
That's it for Worldwide Update. I'm John DeDakis at the CNN Center in Atlanta.
And I'm Susan Rook. We'll have more news at the top of the hour now. Paul Runnells is here with the lowdown on sports highlights. Paul.
Coming up, the beginning of Mike Tyson's work week finds him in an Indianapolis courtroom facing, among other charges, rape. The Redskins and Bills return to their respective homes. We'll hear from the Super Bowl winners and losers. And Duke tries to remain perfect in college basketball. All of that and more coming up on Sports Late Night just around the corner.
The fascination always existed. The human body, without doubt, is the greatest of inventions. Flawless in design, capable of astonishing feats. Amazingly, the harder the body is worked, the stronger, more beautiful it becomes. To unlock your body's potential, we proudly offer Soloflex. 32 old-fashioned iron-pumping exercises, each correct in form and balance. All on a machine that fits in the corner of your home. Soloflex, simple and efficient, like the body itself. Which may explain why it looks less like a machine and more like a work of art. For a free brochure, call anytime.
This is CNN.
Coming up on CNN Sports Late Night, Mike Tyson goes from the ring to the court. The former heavyweight champ facing heavy charges in Indianapolis. The Redskins head home high on the hog. The suddenly road warrior Knicks wing into Utah and come away whistling a happy tune. College hoops starts with Duke in that crazy place called Cameron. Raleigh asking for help from above, and a Games of '92 preview.
Don't shove off. Stay put with CNN Sports Late Night.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm Tom West.
And I'm Paul Runnells, and this has been a milestone day in the legal minds this week when Mike Tyson starting off his work week in Indianapolis courtroom.
Doesn't look like it's going to be quite the circus we're anticipating because there isn't live television allowed out of Indiana courts, but that's not to say there isn't plenty of press on hand. News media from around the world have been drawn to Indianapolis as former heavyweight champion Mike Tyson begins his fight for something much more important than a boxing title. Tyson is charged with rape, 2 counts of criminal deviant conduct, and confinement of an 18-year-old beauty pageant contestant last July. Charges that could add up to 63 years in prison if convicted. Jeff Locke was there for day 1 of the trial as the jury selection began.
Greeted by cheers and flashbulbs, Mike Tyson walked into a Marion County, Indiana court building that may hold a tougher challenge than any ring he's ever climbed into. Tyson faces more than 60 years in prison, charged with raping an 18-year-old Miss Black America contestant. Tyson took the long walk to court for the start of his trial with his defense team, headed by one of the most prominent lawyers in Washington, Vincent Fuller. Also on hand to provide support, Tyson's friend and promoter, Don King.
All we want is a level playing field with due process so that justice can prevail.
Central to a fair trial, a fair jury. Both sides spent Monday trying to make certain the jurors they pick will be fair to them. Prosecutor Greg Garrison asking questions of the jurors like, is it fair for a woman to be able to say no? And do you think rape is less of a crime if the alleged victim uses bad judgment in where she goes? The defense team asking questions like, do you understand that because a man is a boxer, he's not necessarily violent? And should celebrities be held to a higher standard? The fruits of all of those questions, 5 jurors so far. 1 black man, 1 white woman, and 3 white men. Who does that give the edge to?
The jurors who have come up so far to be considered seem to have some problems whether you're on one side or the other. So I think at this particular point, we don't get a real indication that either side is getting ahead of the other one.
The trial pits Tyson's hired gun, high-powered defense attorney Fuller, against Indianapolis's own hired gun prosecutor, Greg Garrison.
He's a good lawyer. I mean, but we got a lot of good lawyers around here.
Tyson went home on Monday knowing that the trial is so far moving on schedule. A jury could be picked by Tuesday. I'm Jeff Locke, CNN, Indianapolis.
While picking 5 of the eventual dozen jurors, 11 others were dismissed along the way. Opening statements aren't expected until at least Wednesday afternoon.
Well, it's the day after for Redskin fans, but if the city was suffering from a Super Bowl hangover, it didn't show.